What's up, everybody? Another episode, Sooner Intel, however you want to call it. You got the Horns Down podcast, Hall of Fame college football podcast with Coach and Jason. Then you got Mr. Sooners 360 himself, Chris Mason, and then we got somebody else we added here, the Kaizen legend himself, Mr. Franchise himself. We got Brady Trantham in here, ladies and gentlemen, from Through the Keyhole podcast. So definitely excited to have him in here, talk about some notes, different things that he's heard about it. Brady has OU winning 10 plus games this year. Let me stop. He is
in baseball.
He's somewhere between being a pessimist and being optimistic. So we're going to try to get him to be on the optimistic side. As you know, Jason, what are we calling this podcast? What's the title of this podcast tonight?
Are we drinking the Kool-Aid?
Are we drinking the Kool-Aid? We will get to that soon, but let's go ahead and jump right into it. And folks, we're going to start with Chris Mason. Let's talk a little high school recruiting. And then obviously, if you want to lead with that, you know what a lot of people are really talking about. Bentley versus O'Neill. What is going on in the high school ranks? You're on mute.
I think for 2026, obviously, we're in the Bentley O'Neill, situation. And obviously the biggest curveball recently that's been thrown out, and this was on my Patreon site a little earlier in the week, is that Bo Bentley's going to apparently the Florida Elite 11 regional to qualify for Elite 11. So he's not going to the Austin one. He won't be competing with Jaden O'Neill, UT verbal Diabell, and Houston verbal and five-star quarterback right now, Kezion Henderson, who lit it up in the Navy game and sort of jumped into the sort of top 10 ranking. So I think we'd all kind of hoped, and we'd thrown it around on multiple podcasts. I know on Jason's podcast we talked about it. We talked about it on here last week, that we were kind of hoping that maybe we would see a head-to-head battle between Bo Bentley and Jaden O'Neill, so that maybe that would be an indicator at the regional of which way maybe OU should go, since I think we all feel that both quarterbacks is kind of ridiculous. Bo Bentley's going to the Florida one. I can only imagine, I'm guessing that he's taking some Florida visits, and that time frame coincides correctly. Maybe he's going to FSU, maybe he's going to Florida, or maybe he's going to Miami. I'm not sure, but he will not be he's from Salina, Texas. It was a pretty heavy presumption that he was just going to go to the Austin one. Instead, he's going to be out and about doing other stuff. So we won't get to see those guys go head-to-head, but we will get to see Jaden O'Neill, the OU verbal right now, compete against two top 10 ranked players, depending upon what service you're looking at, and go against the Diabell, the UT guy. So if Jaden O'Neill comes out of the Austin regional as the MVP, that will certainly say a lot. Bentley probably will be competing with Noah Grubbs, who's the Notre Dame verbal commitment, and Deron Coleman from Miami, who is very interested in OU, and he's the current Miami verbal commitment. So I'm guessing Bentley's looking at probably UF or FSU. FSU's desperate for a big-name quarterback. They lost their kid. So that's 2026. Still heading down this path of no real resolution on this two quarterback thing. So we'll see if O'Neill comes to the Crimson Combine. We'll see what Bentley's schedule is. He just went to LSU and was raving about LSU. That's kind of a worry if I was worried about anything. LSU is dropping money all over the place. Like it's
wait. BK said they don't pay for players.
They do now. They just paid for Tristan Keys, the five-star wide receiver from the Mississippi area, I believe.
They're going to pay for somebody that can tackle.
I don't know. All I can tell you is they are paying their recruiting class. They're probably going to have to end up with the number one recruiting class in the country, and they are paying big time. And Bentley, I think this is the concern I have is OU continues to slow play O'Neill to whatever degree we think they are. Jared Curtis picks Oregon. Georgia comes back to O'Neill and says, you're our number one guy. And while that's going on, Bentley gets a huge deal from from LSU, and then OU is out of quarterbacks altogether. So that's definitely a concern for 2027. I based upon my sources, it looks like OU's has re-grabbed momentum or maybe grabbed the lead for Peyton Houston of Christian Evangel, quarterback for 27, who's top 15 in the nation according to Rivals. But they also are working Malachi Ziegler, the other Louisiana quarterback. He came on campus, had a great visit. So I think OU for 2027 has a good chance of getting either one of those guys because LSU is focused on Elijah Haven for 2027. He's like a top player in the nation, 6'5".
Chris Mason, if I may just interject real quick with LSU, and I know we have our own issues going on right now with, deciding the 2026 quarterbacks, but hell, will they even get that far? Because I think a lot of people are really high, and maybe I'm one of those people who would buy stock on Michael Van Buren. I think that kid has a shot to, if he gets with the right, coaches or whatnot. Hell, he was with Levy. I think he could have lit it up again this year. Maybe have a similar result in the winning column, but at the same time, he was lighting up the SEC. So with him being there at LSU, does that steer away a lot of kids because he's right there and he's proven. He's a bit proven, unpolished, but he's proven at least at this level that he can play.
I don't think it scares away. I like Van Buren just like you guys, but he's not scaring away Bentley or any of these other top quarterbacks. So I think, LSU obviously, the Jaden Daniels rookie year in the NFL has given them just so much cred on the quarterback path. I think their quarterback who's coming back is also going to be a top draft pick. So I think they're on a hot string right now, right? Because they got Jaden Daniels, and they did fairly well last year. So, and their NIL money's coming back. We know they're going to spend, beg, borrow, and steal to get all the money they need. I think LSU and Bentley worries me because I'm afraid that they will come while we're juggling NIL money between two guys. I could see LSU coming over the top with a big offer and Bentley's family being like, well, we love OU and want him to go to OU, but they're still recruiting O'Neal. We don't want to be in a 2-quarterback situation. And it could bite OU in the ass, I think.
No way. There is no way. I just can't even understand why you would do that in view of the fact that that's basically like you're going to throw away. Let's just say, we're talking about possibility to say they go 9-3. They don't make the playoff, but that brings John Mateer back for a year or two. You think that either one of those guys is staying around after year one coming in if he's there for year two? No way. So you're just going to pay both of them for a year and one of them's bouncing no matter what? Come on.
Hey, yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. So I just think logistically, Bentley going to LSU, he's going to Ohio State. I think that's probably maybe too far. That the distance maybe will play a role, but they obviously, they're picking up Texas players left and right. So Ohio State has a history of picking up Texas guys. At this point, I'm just concerned now that Bentley's on the road and he's getting real NIL offers from folks that OU could have screwed themselves in this manner. If they had just stuck with O'Neal and gone that route, I don't think he would have ever gone to Georgia, but he obviously went to go visit Georgia because they're still involved with Bentley.
Well, I mean, how much are we just kind of waiting for? And obviously you'd want to have this stuff situated before the season even starts. I mean, with how recruiting is nowadays. But I mean, how much influence would Ben Arbuckle's offense just rolling, like whether or not that results in 9 or 10 wins is a different story, but John Mateer balls out. Ben Arbuckle is one of the hottest assistants in the country as a result, at a big time program. How much does that kind of like re-engage OU in some of these recruiting battles with quarterbacks that are starting to kind of see the lay of the land in terms of NIL money and going, OU's been recruiting me hard, but they're kind of wishy-washy. So I'm going to go look at LSU, or I'm going to go look at Ohio State, or I'm going to look at Georgia. Fast forward a few months and OU's offense looks like it typically does, being quarterback over the last 10, 15 years. How much, I would imagine that would change the game to an extent, but at the same time, like like we've kind of already mentioned, I mean, John Mateer, if they don't make the playoff this year, okay, so he's going to come back more than likely, maybe, I guess. I would say, I mean, I would ask the question, if they don't make the playoff or threaten for the playoff, does Brent Venables still coach OU the following year? And if that be the case, then is Ben Arbuckle here? You know, so OU needs to be looking at it from a year-by-year basis right now, not like projecting 2-3 years down the road. You need to go win games now, and that should result in good things coming, because right now OU's like in a reputation crisis of trying to, damage control.
No, I think, Brady, that's all good. I mean, the other spin we had on this that we hadn't really thought about is so Bentley obviously is sort of the the story is Bentley is the Arbuckle guy. Arbuckle prefers Bentley over O'Neill. Okay, so that's the narrative that's out there. But if I'm Nagy and I'm looking at the OU program, and I've got 2 years of John Mateer, I'm presuming I've got 2 years of John Mateer, maybe. If OU has positive offensive seasons the next 2 seasons, I don't think Arbuckle's going to be coaching either of these guys after Mateer, because I think he'll have a head coaching job. So possibly. that's just the way it's gone for OU offensive coordinators, the last run. So I think that's an issue. I think, I just don't. I think Nagy needs to step in here and just say 2 quarterbacks makes no sense. Let's make a final decision on a quarterback and run with that guy. So, but you are right. It's, to me, if Mateer, I mean, there is a narrative where with OU's schedule and the hype OU would have if they were, let's just say they came out of Dallas with maybe 1 loss and they went on the road to Rocky Top and won or something like that. I mean, and Mateer is playing great. There certainly is a narrative that has John Mateer leaving after 1 year.
So
if he ends up in the Heisman finalists, he's out of here probably.
Oh yeah, it's a weak QB class as well, fellas. Arch Manning is not coming out next year. I think he's going to be a 4-year guy, and I think they're going to want him to be patient and develop with Sark. You're looking at the kid from Arizona State, Lenoris Sellers, guys like that who, obviously they're talented, but it's a weak QB class next year. It really is. Like I'm really interested to see exactly what McShay and Kuiper and all of them, how they're gonna put these quarterbacks, and they're gonna grade these quarterbacks out on their big board. But I remember talking to my uncle and sending him, I think it was On 3, who had like their top 10 returning quarterbacks. I know Mateer was like at number 9 or so. And, when I read off the names, we both said, okay, well, Lagway, sophomore, Arch Manning, don't believe that he's going to come out after next year, even if he has a fantastic year. So you're kind of looking at the rest of it like, hey, if John Mateer can win 9 to 10 games, there's going to be a lot of buzz about him possibly being in that top 3, top 5 quarterbacks taken in that draft. So,
and that's the hardest schedule in America, 9 or 10 wins, right? Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We obviously don't know how that could all break out. It could be some of those teams could really struggle and not be as good. But to your point, you're right. So if you lost Mateer after year 1, Watkins would appear to be your next guy up. But would that increase? But I mean, Brady, to your point, where I think OU's season will be more interesting is not at quarterback, but maybe along D-line and linebacker. If OU's playing great, I think OU will be able to come back to some of these high 4-star top 100 kids that they're right there battling on. And if OU's having a great season, I think that's where OU will be able to come back around in recruiting. A player like, for example,
winning cures all, right? I mean, winning cures all.
Yeah, exactly. But if you're winning and you're doing great, then your pitch to players like the California linebacker I love so much, Talanoa Ely, right? If he's choosing Oregon, if he chooses USC does their usual foldo, and he's looking for another spot. And OU now is playing better, and he's seen Stutzman go in the draft. He sees the linebacker play at OU. So I think those are the kind of guys where OU could maybe roll back and flip some guys if they're having a good season. But at quarterback, you don't usually see that many in-season flips. We did have the guy Deuce McKnight made the critically bad decision to leave all. I mean, not fiscally bad, but coaching bad.
Yeah.
To leave the stable situation at Notre Dame and go to whatever's going on at Auburn. I guess he can bail after a year and go back to Notre Dame.
Yeah.
But
He's don't usually start over Jackson Arnold though.
Yeah, he could. So you don't see that. Obviously, the Underwood kid from Michigan was the big flip last year, and that was kind of a surprise. But that was a Michigan kid, and it took a
lot of money.
They took the Barstool guy and Larry Ellison and God knows what else to make that happen. So I think that's $15
million or plus.
I'm glad you brought that up in terms of like QB flips in season, because that's kind of like, I would imagine that's what fans who are worried about, like, okay, where are we going with Jaden O'Neal, Bo Bentley? Right. Yeah. It's very apparent that Arbuckle just wants Bo Bentley for his system. Maybe he thinks that he fits it better than Jaden O'Neal does. And that's fine. He's the OC. He's the guy that OU put in charge of the offense. So that's the direction you should go, but they're wishy-washy on both. So the fear is, what if you lose both of them? What are we going to do? Well, I mean, everyone's making comparisons to 2015 with Lincoln Riley, Baker Mayfield, Ben Arbuckle, and John Mateer, and they're all there, and a lot of them have some merit. But it's a nice reminder to, remind everybody that, like a nice reminder that everybody. I mean, that Lincoln Riley didn't have a recruited quarterback until Spencer Rattler, 3 or 4 years into his tenure at OU. I mean, well after he became the head coach, he had Baker, who he inherited, Kyler, who transferred to OU when Lincoln was the OC, and then he got Jalen via the transfer portal. So if you miss on guys you're trying to recruit out of high school in the quarterback position, but your QB that you have already balls out in the new system with the new OC, and you're able to keep the OC for 2 or 3 years, if OU's lucky, everything goes the way that we want it to go, OU is going to be the #1 school for hot QB in the portal. So it's not ideal, but it's not like if OU loses out on some of these high school QBs for 26 that the sky's going to fall.
Mm-hmm. No, it's obviously the environment's completely changed, right, from 2015. Because, back in 2015, when OU got Kyler, he had to sit out for a year, right? Now he'll be instantly eligible. And would he have been willing to sit as long as he did behind Baker? You don't know. But yeah, you're right. You could pick up a guy. You could push this can down the road and go to 2027 and just go with Peyton Houston and decide that you're going to skip this and kind of deal with where you are. High school QB recruiting has obviously, it kind of everything gets done by the summer, but generally speaking, so it's tough to see how OU. I think if OU gets Bentley and Jaden O'Neal through official visit season, verbal to OU, I think that kid will stick with OU through the rest of the year, barring something weird like Mateer leaves and then all of a sudden OU gets contacted by a Kyler Murray type talent, somebody like Deuce McKnight, okay? And he says he wants to leave Auburn and come to Oklahoma or something like that, right? That somebody, somebody just elite just kind of gets dropped in their lap.
It would fit the Kyler Murray analogy even more because we did trade for Kyler Murray for Trevor Knight eventually. Trevor Knight ended up going to A&M. So you lose Jackson Arnold, that you eventually inherit Deuce McKnight. Okay.
Yeah, so Auburn does owe us a quarterback. So we'll take Deuce McKnight if Mateer leaves. And then, you never know. But you are right. In the past, with the transfer rules and sitting out and quarterbacks being fairly rigid about what's going on, this O'Neal Bentley thing would have looked even worse. But for now, we'll see how it rides. But I am a little worried that, LSU being big in the picture worries me because they are just spending a ridiculous amount of money. They didn't get their elite quarterback last year because obviously Underwood bolted. So if they decide that Bentley is the guy that they want to run in the system that they have, OU matching LSU and NIL with the money they're throwing around might be a little tough. And then all of a sudden, like I said, Georgia loses out on Jared Curtis to Oregon, which I think is a strong possibility. You know, they come rolling back to Jaden O'Neal, who my sources say he loved that visit and they love him. So,
hey, let me jump in here real quick. So just to kind of nail that one in the coffin, because this is going to be an ongoing topic, and I definitely want to hear more about kind of like some more high school footballers. But I kind of think I'm excited that maybe Nagy is going to have kind of a big time decision in this, because no matter the coach, no matter the scheme, no matter the team, no matter whoever the hell is here, the offensive coordinator, whatever, we can't afford to have another JFA situation. We can't afford to have another Jackson Arnold situation. And I hope Jackson Arnold has a good career the rest of the way out. I hope he makes the league, all the rest of that. But we can't miss like that. Like you saw how that kind of stunted the growth from last year. And there were so many different factors that get into that. We talked about that ad nauseum. Just go back, watch every one of our podcasts, listen to every one of our podcasts, and you will hear how disappointed, disgruntled, all those adjectives, right? But at the end of the day, we can't afford that. So we know that. And I mean, I'm kind of leaning more towards Jaden O'Neal. I think I made it clear. The Bo Bentley kid, even though I like Arbuckle and what he does, he's still going to have to prove it to me that he can, get it done. I want to see material. I'm excited about it. Yes, I am. Bo Bentley gives me the whole Tannehill vibes, and I'm not a big fan of that. Converted wide receiver to quarterback, we don't have time to kind of wait for that unless you are confident that Michael Hawkins is your guy, and then you could transition Bo Bentley to being the,
Why does he give you those vibes though?
It's just, man, he convert both are converted wide receivers. Both have all these, characteristics, good arm, this and that, blah, 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 this and that. But to me, he's still
make the argument that Tannehill was A&M's best quarterback in the last 20 years.
So what?
Well, are we skipping the Heisman?
Johnny Football. Johnny Football is
okay. All right.
Best one. Never mind. But after that, who else? Who else you got? Kellen Mond.
Well, again,
6 games, Kyler.
the greatest A&M quarterback other than Johnny Football is it's not that hard a bar to get over. So, but to me, I just wonder if Nagy may look at this quarterback situation differently, because he was talking about measurables and traits, and I think maybe Nagy looks at it and says, "Well, Jaden O'Neal has NFL traits left and right. If my offensive coordinator can't develop and utilize that, then maybe he shouldn't be my offensive coordinator." So we'll see how this shakes out. But I would imagine, I imagine Nagy's going to have a role in this, because as I understand it, if we want to get to running back recruiting, he's already playing a role in the running back recruiting situation that's about to play out over the next 5 days.
Yeah, go ahead. Jump into that real quick.
Well, Caden Jones, the Kawan Jones kid, is announcing at the end of the month. He set his date, I think it was the 27th. And I had always presumed, he was going to OU, but it looks like he's going to go to Kansas or Oklahoma State. And a big part of that is OU debating what kind of a fit he is for the current offense. It looks like OU is going to lose out on Jonathan Hatton to A&M, because they're going to pay. A&M's paying a big money. So OU has to decide whether they're going to match that or not. And I think Nagy's looking at the running back room, looking at the running back position, and maybe deciding that this year he doesn't want to spend big salary. I'm going to call it what it is, salary cap dollars on a running back, that with Xavier Robinson and the other young running backs, Taylor Tatum and Blaylock, that maybe he doesn't want to spend big money on a running back in recruiting this year. So I expect OU to go 0 for 2 on those guys. They probably have a good shot at flipping Rylan Morris, who's currently verbal to Baylor, but he's he's a 5'10", 5'9", 180 pound kind of third down back. So he's not a big pounding, run between the tackles, big back. So maybe OU is going to de-emphasize running back recruiting this year from a salary cap perspective. Now, maybe that will change after we see the spring exits, but I think that's where OU is right now. They will not get Jonathan Hatton, at least not right now, and they're not going to get Caden Jones unless things change and we're just getting bad info from the Jones group who want to just pull out the OU hat surprise. High Top Sports says you can get good running backs that are 3 stars. Yeah, I mean, running backs are certainly a commodity in the pro game that Nagy's coming from, save for, Saquon Barkley, and maybe it's just Saquon Barkley at this point. So in terms of running backs.
I think that's where you start looking at. You don't have to look at always at the stars. You can start. You've got those 2 kids.
This
class coming and the next one that you could possibly end up with, either one of which would be a stud. And Xavier Robinson is a 3-star also.
And that's where Nagy really comes in, because I mean, obviously in his pressers and listening to him on the franchise, just everywhere that I could finally, kind of listen to him talk OU specific stuff. Hey, we're gonna, one thing that rings true every time he speaks is, hey, we're gonna help everybody on this team, even if their path is not to the NFL. But certainly, if you're coming to OU, you want to go play in the league. That's kind of that's to me, that's going to be the standard with the portal and the and high school recruiting. And I mean, at the end of the day, Brady, maybe you jump in here too, but I think Brady will back me up on this. You got 4 or 5 running backs in there. If you're going to have this crazy ass rotation that nobody ever knows like how it's going to go, it's only consistent 1 to 2 games per year. What's the use of going and spending a lot of money on a running back when you just like, I don't know who's playing today, right?
See, I thought I was going to be the mean one, but you kind of leaned into it just a little bit. Honestly, I don't really care about running back recruiting, because you could tell me that we're going to sign Adrian Peterson, and I'm like, cool. Is DeMarco Murray still the one deciding who goes out there and runs the football? Because if so, we might see AD 1, 2, 3 games this year, and then never again. Because, oh no, what if he doesn't practice as hard as some other guy who's not as good as him?
Here, Brady. You would not be in the minority.
It's maddening. Like, I understand like modern football and the value of a running back. I understand that. At the end of the day, though, when you are going up against a team that you're competing against in terms of like, that's, this is Texas, this is a big game, this is a team that we kind of mark ourselves next to. When you're in those situations, it's funny how important suddenly the running game becomes. It's like, oh, can you control the line of scrimmage? And the team that can run the football at will, they 99% of the time win the game. Until Brent Venables decides to actively be the head coach and tell DeMarco Murray, I don't care what Xavier Robinson said to you on Wednesday. That dude rushed for 150 plus and 2 touchdowns against Alabama. He's playing against LSU. I don't care what you think. Like, cool. You love Javonte Barnes or whatever because he's from Vegas. That's awesome. And he rarely ever gets hurt. That's great. Play the best guy. It's absolutely maddening. So Jonathan Hatton, yeah, it's a bummer. But at the end of the day, if he was awesome, he's just going to come here and maybe not play consistently. It's stupid.
I would agree with that. I think that you start looking at some of these guys that they're looking at right now. I mean, I just had Michael Stevens on from Mississippi the other day, and he's not even ranked. He's got offers from Ohio State, Georgia, Florida State, obviously the Mississippi schools as well. He's a 2027 kid, but he's not even ranked. He doesn't have a star, which is crazy to me. But I mean, you look at these offers. I mean, getting hung up on these stars don't mean shit either. It's just dumb. I don't understand it most of the time.
Well, let's see what Buckle can do with DeMarco this year in terms of the running back rotation and how it's going to work.
The one thing that would be
the hope, right?
I mean, last year was you're right. It was a mess, but everything offensively was a mess. So it's in that environment, it's hard to.
Well, Kchris, I don't mean to cut you off, but like Jeff Lebby, like say what you want about him, and I certainly don't have the best opinion of him, but he is still a good offensive coordinator. He's still a good offensive coach, and definitely very respected in the college football ranks. And yet, either he didn't care enough about personnel on the field, depending on what his play call was, or he didn't care enough to like be the leader over DeMarco Murray. But I mean, I still go back to that moment in Stillwater where it's third and long and you luck yourself into Nick Anderson cutting across the field, getting wide open, gigantic chunk play. And you're like, oh God, we've got momentum. Let's do something with it. Call a trick play. That makes sense. But you throw out, what's his name? That was here for 5 minutes, quit the team, came back, and then he transferred to NC State, who's Smothers. Why is he out there on a trick play? And then they tried to pretend like it wasn't a direct snap. It's like, yes, it was. You just don't want to admit that you guys are not talking to each other and valuing, like, when you want to go fast according to the personnel. If you want to go fast, great. Don't put out an 18-year-old true freshman who quit the team and fall. Like, if you do that, then fumble the football. Great. It just, I want to believe Ben Arbuckle can do that, what you're talking about, and like be the leader of the offense. But we've already had a really good OC with DeMarco Murray, and it didn't really do much.
Okay, so obviously last year I'm just sort of ignoring because I don't know what anybody was doing.
Fair.
Okay, 23 I'll give you, but it doesn't explain 20, 21, and 22 when DeMarco gave the rock to a guy and we had basically 1,000-yard rushers. Obviously, we didn't have one for COVID, but if Stevenson wasn't suspended, he would have been a 1,000-yard rusher that season. I'm trying to figure out. To me, it's like the two DeMarco Murrays, and obviously, I'm with you. The 23 DeMarco Murray, yeah. What the hell were you doing at times with your rotation of running backs?
Agreed.
Last year, if I'm giving Emmett Jones a mulligan, I'm giving DeMarco a mulligan. Because I mean, it was clear there was no running room. It wouldn't have mattered who the running back was.
Well, we've all heard that was Luttrell that made those decisions for the most part. Anyway,
Yeah, so I'm giving him a mulligan. So I'm with you. This is the make or break. You should, if based upon everything we're seeing from spring, you should be giving the ball to Xavier Robinson. He should be your number one running back, getting the most carries based upon spring ball and how well last year ended. He put on weight. He looks fantastic. Everyone says he looks great. Wasting a running back's red shirt to me is kind of pointless. That's a pointless argument, but you can go there. I mean, last year we did all kinds of pointless things with red shirts. So
he didn't have to, though, was the point. You got one carry at the end of Ole Miss and one carry at the end of Mizzou, and that was it. I mean, and the games were over with.
Again, I don't disagree with you in the running back usage, but also, what was Joe John Finley not doing as offensive coordinator, saying put in X Rob and feed him the damn football instead of having Arnold drop back. So I mean, I want to get beyond ancient history and say this is the year with Arbuckle, and I've heard DeMarco loves what Arbuckle's doing. It's very engaged as opposed to last year. I heard Emmett Jones, Bill, and DeMarco were all like, what the F? We don't know what's going on. We're not being listened to.
No, we've heard that too. Yeah.
Nothing's being incorporated. No one's telling us what's going on. Joe John's not listening to us, and he's doing his own thing. So I would say this is the year. I think this is the as fair as I can be, objective as I can be. This is the year where DeMarco needs to identify a horse and let it run because you've got multiple guys. And I'll presume, and as long as that guy's not critically hurt, run with that guy, let him go. And then if that's not the case, then, I think DeMarco needs to be in the pros. I said that on our podcast weeks ago that he's a pro running back, that I think he's stuck in the guys aren't as good as he is. So he's very critical of the mistakes they make. And that's why he swaps some guys out sometimes. But, when you're talking about 5-star running backs, when you look at running backs, ignore the stars on Jonathan Hatton and just look at the film, right? The film is excellent. That's a big blow in recruiting if they don't get him because they don't have anybody else lined up behind him other than the Mississippi guy who hopefully they can pull in. Is it Hill? Is it Hill? Is it JJ Hill? What, Jason?
JJ Hill, yes.
Who would be a big power back. I've got no issues there. So,
very similar to X-Rob. Very similar to X-Rob.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. Does really good things. So yeah, but I'm with you. You know, let's if it's money for Felix Ojo at offensive tackle or Jonathan Hatton, go with Felix Ojo. He's the best left tackle in Texas, and that's what you should do. If it's
you gotta have somebody for these fellas to run behind. So
if it's Jonathan Hatton or Sinceri Johnson, the linebacker from Ohio, I got
Sinceri Johnson.
Go get the linebacker, or this new linebacker from Florida, Balagon Ali, who's just showed up on the radar, who looks really good. So OU has clearly definable roster weak spots from my viewpoint following recruiting, and they are at linebacker. There's only one left tackle really that they're looking at that's worth big money, and that's Ojo. And get down to one quarterback. The wide receiver room's stacked again. But yeah, I think we need D-line. We obviously need D-line. We need guys to come this year so they can then develop, so they're ready to roll after we lose Stone and Jackson. So we need a D-line class. Bates has done a great job identifying guys there. We need money spent there. And Chavis has done a great job getting us in the top 3 for 2 top 50, in my opinion. 2 at least. The Cruel kid from IMG is a top 50 player. And I think KJ Ford from Duncanville is at least the top 100 guy. So you need that. You need money there. And you need money there. And you also have Luke Waffley is going to be on campus the next week or two. He's a top 50 defensive end. You got to keep adding these guys there. So if you're telling me the money from Hatton is going to one of those spots, I am completely down with that.
Facts. I'm with you there. Yeah. We're loaded at running back right now. And until you're using those guys up, then I don't know why we're worried that much about how many damn stars they have or anything else. I mean, I'm kind of with what Brady said too, is like, look, we need to settle on a horse that's in the stable now and decide, hey, give him the fucking rock.
Yeah, I mean, X-Rob and Blaylock could be your power combo for the next 2 years.
Yeah, dude. That's a home run waiting to happen too. I mean, that's
they
got them out there. They're out there, man. I buy Blaylock as much as anybody with his dad, with his genes and the way his dad coached him up. So, but yeah, that's running back recruiting. Kchris with the K, I think wide receiver recruiting has gotten more interesting. More kids are booking offers and booking official visits. Linebacker recruiting is starting to get going. They've got about 4 or 5 guys with official visits that I really like there. So the Dreiling Goodwin combo in recruiting is starting to play off. That you're seeing that move, which didn't get a lot of play because of the whole Knowles thing. But it looks like the Dreiling edition was a big addition. I was very happy to be on your podcast, Jason, and hearing Boganowski's dad raving about Dreiling. I thought that was a great piece of news to get. Right after that, we had Reggie Powers III on too the next week, and he was talking about how much Reggie really loves
Goodwin.
Goodwin, yes. Same.
So those 2 guys, I think, Kchris, are going to have.
I think it's a great move. Both of them great moves.
Going to help OU in recruiting, but OU's got a good group of guys visiting for June already. It's can they close on them? Who are the priorities, and who are the guys that are there any other players out there that are going to sort of fall into the mix? But I could put a really good and how many people is OU? How many guys is OU going to sign is also another question. So Sooner Scoop guy thinks Josh McCuistion thinks OU's going to sign 22. I when I do the numbers, I don't know how OU's under 25 kids. With the numbers they need to hit on the defense, especially.
I hear you, guys. Let's go ahead and kind of jump in here into the portal. So as you guys can see, Unc is right there. He said, "Will we get rid of some wide receivers and bring some in through the portal?" In case he can't type, but regardless, though, Nagy, things that you're reading, things that you're hearing, and stuff like that, is that he's not only looking, externally, he's looking internally as well. I guess across the nation, what is really being said is like, hey, there's some teams out there with some players that are getting paid a lot of money for minimal production or production that doesn't match the dollars, right? So I think you'll see that may become the trend where people are trying to either restructure their contracts to keep the kid there because they can get some production out of the kid, or B, you're going to see some kids probably exit. And I think you've seen some of that. It just hasn't necessarily been coined or framed that way. Excuse me. So that's the interesting part. But as far as the portal, again, we talked about, I think last week about, like running back room or whatever. Is there, you start looking at kids like maybe the KJ McDaniels or kids like that, possibly. I'm just throwing names out there, people. I don't know. But are you guys hearing anything about any kids that you're like, okay, well, let's that maybe that kid is somebody that can make an exit, or on the other end of that with the portal? Obviously, we know the portal takes us away, but it also gives. So is there any groupings, any personnel or anybody out there that you're just like, hey, this kid is in the portal, why can't we get him? Because I know for me, I would love to see us. We need added insurance at corner. In my opinion, we're not necessarily thin, but we are we're young, right?
Yeah, for sure.
If Gentry can play a full year, that's amazing. Him and Eli Bowen and Dolby together, that could be great. Jacoby Johnson, if he could take that step, but who is the fourth guy? And you can't really count it out because Eli Bowen, go back to CJ Colden as well. OU puts maybe around that fourth or fifth game, you start seeing somebody pop into that rotation that you're just like, oh, I didn't see that coming in that DB room, right? Wide receiver, I think that you got to go get one more wide receiver just to have added protection, simply because Jaden Gibson, I just don't know. Is he going to be 70%, 80%, or is he going to be the same guy that we all love? So that, those are two things. Maybe linebacker, you're a little bit thin in linebacker. Maybe go get that, unless you think that the development of Nesta or one of those other kids behind all of them is good. I don't necessarily know if you mess with the DN or anything on the D line. I think that you possibly, I think those are kind of the three spots that I'm looking at. Maybe offensive line, if you could add somebody that's really, really good. I mean, really, really good. Maybe that could be an interior piece, just because of, like I told you guys last week, June is going to be to me is more, the summer is more important than the spring this time around, simply because summertime, we're going to know who's all actually participating and individuals, they install all the rest of that stuff leading into the fall camp. So with that being said, I'll turn it over to you guys, Brady, Jason, whichever one of you guys want to start on that.
Go ahead, Jason.
No, go ahead, man. I was just about to answer something in there. I don't even think I know the question, to be honest with you.
Well, what do you want to know, Kchris? Like we were jumping all over the place.
I know you're jumping all over the place, but I'm just saying, like, where are your eyes at in the portal? Are you kind of looking internally, or are you looking externally as far as what we need, or what do we have that we could probably, drop or so?
Well, as much as I would want to say internal, because that seems to be like the mark of a really good, efficient program that's trying to win games, is like really cleaning up the margins. I mean, we won 6 games last year, so it just really calls for, we need more talent to help us in the short term. We're relying on a lot of ifs. Some of these ifs are more likely than others. Like some of the ifs that we're relying on has been Arbuckle and John Mateer working. Like they should be pretty good. This is their 3rd year together. How good are they going to be against SEC competition? That's what we're going to have to wait and see. If the offensive line is better than it was last year, I think it's definitely starting at a much better place, than it was going into day one of the season last year. So that's going to be good. But a lot of the other ifs are, I don't know how confident you should be as an OU fan, beating your chest saying like this is definitely going to happen. And it really comes down to the defense, particularly in the secondary. And so when I'm like, yeah, we probably need to be more focused on bringing in talent, I look towards cornerback. I look towards defensive backs. Because Kchris, you said it earlier a few minutes ago, and I reacted to it. If Gentry Williams can be healthy all year, man, he ain't been healthy ever, ever.
Big ass if.
Yeah, we are relying on a 5 or 6 week stretch from 2 seasons ago now, where we're like, that's what we need. He's never healthy, and so I think we're all hoping that he is healthy. I think we're all hoping that he can be still the same type of player that we all remember from the Cotton Bowl 2 years ago. At the same time, even if he is healthy, can we expect the same type of player, considering how injured, like riddled he has been his entire career since he's been at OU and even in high school?
Have it is the question, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And because that's kind of like the understood notion, I would assume, by people with brains, well, then you need to go find cornerbacks and you need to go find good ones, not the dude we had rolling out there from San Diego State last year that ran a 4.7 or 4.8 40. Like, you can't have dudes that are getting cooked at the line. I was at the Auburn game. What was this guy's name? Was it Des Malone?
That's right.
Yeah. That touchdown he got burnt on. Oh my gosh. Should have known then. I was still shocked to see his 40 time, but you need to go find athletes that can compete in this conference. And the key for Brent Venables is defense. It's still going to be a big ask, I think, to replace Billy Bowman because of him playing in the secondary, and that's the weak link. If you have to find a weak link in the defense, it's in the secondary, more so than it is going to be.
Right? It's kind of improving at this point.
Yeah. That's probably going to be a bigger ask to replace more so than Danny Stutzman, even though I think Danny Stutzman's a better player, but I think the linebacker room is better set up for his departure.
There's more veterans returning there too.
Exactly. If the defense wants to take a step from being a good defense, which it was last year, it was a very good defense, to elite, like you're talking top 3, maybe top 4 in the SEC. If you want to be elite, can't get cooked 4 or 5 times a game going deep. That's kind of the thing with a Brent Venables defense. It's very all over the place. It's very aggressive. It takes a lot of chances. And so you kind of have to live with the handful of chunk plays that you give up. But I want that handful of chunk plays to be over the course of a few weeks, not every single game. If we play a quarterback with a pulse and an offense with a pulse, they're going to hit 3 or 4 deep shots. We're in the SEC. Basically, every team we play has a pulse at quarterback. So we cannot afford, while we're still trying to prove that we can pick up a first down after a false start, we are still in that, like, we have to prove that we can do that first before we beat our chest and say that we can do those things. Before we do that, we need to get to the defense to a place where we can dial up pressure without sacrificing something in the back end. No more getting lost in coverage. So if you have to go find guys in the portal that can cover and that have speed, then go do it.
Well, I think the issue is that at linebacker, I'd love to add a linebacker, but I think finding a guy who's honestly going to be willing to sit behind Kobe and Kip Lewis is going to be hard. If a linebacker worth picking up is going to want to go to a place where they are saying, we have a starting spot for you. At cornerback, I think you're right. Safety. The question at safety is, if Peyton Bowen can't come back and can't do what he was doing, showing flashes of his freshman year, how much do you trust the 3 sophomores to fill in that gap, right? How much do you trust those guys to step up with Robert Spears Jennings and be the guys we need in the secondary? At corner, you're right, though. If Gentry can't go and Jacoby Johnson, I'm not suggesting this is going to happen, but let's just say Nagy looks at Jacoby Johnson's development. He's a 3rd-year player, and let's just say Jacoby doesn't have a good spring. I'm just using as an example. I'm not picking on him. I'm not saying this is happening. Let's just say Jacoby's struggling this spring. Does Nagy look at his number, his NIL number, which behind the scenes apparently got bumped up because of some poaching? Does Nagy decide I need to cut him and redirect that NIL money to somebody in the portal who I really like? That could be the kind of ripple.
Jay, and then we're talking about he's been pretty good. I heard him on Jay and the guys on Locked On Sooners or whatever the other morning, but
they felt like he was having a good spring. Okay.
Yeah, that's the word. But I mean, and that doesn't.
But I'm
that
just
doesn't
using the
necessarily mean
example
anything.
that I'm just
Well, I
using
also think-
hypothetical. But
Yeah.
the other question is you've got to find.
I think you need to go
OU's
find.
gotten lucky with D line in the portal the last 2 years in spring, right? Picking up DeJuan, picking up DeJean, and then picking up Dominique Williams, right? We were able to pick up 2 defensive tackles who really helped. That was great. Can you find an elite cornerback? I mean, the example would have been 2 years ago. OU came in second for the UMass cornerback who ended up going to Michigan and was a big part of their national championship run.
Yeah.
I think his name was Wallace was his last name. Pretty sure. He was drafted. He was a draftable player. So can you find a guy at cornerback that is going to basically be a starter?
Is this not that's not what Nagy's for? I mean, he's here to help identify those guys that you
and I think he can, but
and all that, right?
But to do that, do you have to if you don't like Gentry's progress this spring, do you cut Gentry to free up the NIL money you need? I think this is where we're going to look at is 3rd and 4th year guys who are not really developing and don't really have a reason why. I think are going to be the question marks that Gentry has.
But is there not somewhere else that you might be able to cut back to get some of that money? Whenever that's a position that you feel like you're thin at, you don't want to cut a guy that has been good in the past if he's healthy. Now, if he wasn't healthy, if something was going on and he's not healthy, then maybe. But I don't know, man.
I'm just saying that there's. I agree.
Find somebody that has some kind of what we're looking for is we got to go find somebody that has experience on the back end and talent.
Yeah, and I'm just saying that's going to cost because everybody will be looking for it as well. No one really has enough cornerback talent, really. I mean, really.
Facts. That's a big fact.
So, I trust Nagy to find a guy. I trust Nagy to work his contacts to maybe get that guy on a Norman. But NIL being what it is and salary cap being what it is, maybe to get a certainty in, we're going to have to cut a potential.
This might be a silly thought because it's also another because if Kendall Dolby can come back at some point and be as good as I think he is, as good as he was going to be. If he wasn't hurt last year, I wonder if the secondary got exposed as much as it did in key moments.
It wouldn't have. It dropped
yeah,
off.
I don't think so either. And that's what I was going to talk about because I think that Billy, because of the offense not being what it needed to be at all, I think that affected the defense, especially on the back end where you saw that they're sticking their nose into areas that they probably wouldn't have. They're taking chances and getting burned a couple of times here and there, right? Even Billy was doing it. You saw a lot of that. So I think that's a good question, though.
Yeah, I had Trammell on through the keyhole about a month or so ago, and we were talking about the secondary and all the whiffs during the season, and I couldn't remember exactly like what the combination of safety was out there, and I was like, was it Billy? Was Billy like getting lost? And to Trammell's memory, he thought it was the combination of Robert Spears-Jennings and Peyton Bowen. So when those guys were on the field, that's when you would see like guys streaking downfield like wide open. More times than not.
Getting burned against Tennessee, though.
Yeah, I think Bowen was also on the field when Houston had their big touchdown to like all of a sudden it's like, oh God, are we going to lose this game?
No, I think with Billy was having to make up a little bit more for what am I trying to say? For Dolby being out. I think that Billy's going to play aggressive. He knew the defense in and out, and I think he's always going to play aggressive, and you could trust him to play aggressively. I think the problem was that, they would catch him down there because you don't know what Billy is going to do because Billy's a jack of all trades. Sure. But the disconnect maybe for me was just with RSJ, which that's who I saw kind of having a bit of blown coverages, mostly because his eyes got caught in the backfield. And we know the type of hammer that he can lay on people, when he's able to. But
which is why they have him at free safety, right? Yeah.
It just was. I mean, at the end of the day, you're trying to make up. You're trying to make up ground. You need to make a play. So it's kind of go back to the Iowa State game 2 years ago, right? Where Billy gets that incredible pick six. Crowd is going crazy, everything is going fire, and all of a sudden everybody's just kind of out of whack for a few quarters because, they're trying to make the next big play because it's there.
Yeah, they started getting greedy. Yeah.
And talking to Ty Hayes a while ago on his pod, we would talk about it ad nauseam. The beauty, the gut-wrenching part, the part that you hate is kind of the bend but don't break mentality of the defense sometimes, because it's like they'll travel so the offense will get going, the opposing offense will get going, and all the rest of that stuff, and they're getting first down, 20 yards from the goal line. It's just when he starts getting tougher. But the beauty of BV's defense is if everything is clicking, people understand what's going on, he's going to put you in areas to be around the football and make plays on it, whether that's getting the sack, whether that's getting the interception, whether that's just making the right play, whatever the case may be. His defense is so interchangeable and just so interlocked, interwebbed, however you want to describe it, that it's always putting you in the right position to make the right play. And that's the beauty of it if it's ran correctly. That's the thing that I to me, that's what could take us to the next level this year, is if thinking wise, mentally, we're there where it's just down pat, which you're hoping, because you have a lot of upperclassmen and a lot of freshmen last year that are sophomores now that took a lot of snaps. So to me, that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, no, I think the question is, which I don't think I'm certainly not in any position to answer based on the data we have, is, is can you run with Jaden Hardy at safety, right, across from Robert Spears-Jennings, right? Instinctual player, a lot of Billy Bowman kind of characteristics, same size and frame. But he's a sophomore, but he played some as a freshman and looked good. Can you go with him versus going out into the portal and finding a safety that you really, really like? So what is the risk reward? Where is Nagy going to judge the money where he needs? Because I'm guessing that Boganowski probably will back up Robert Spears-Jennings. Does that sound right, Jason?
Sounds like it. It sounds that way, yeah.
So it's really the Bowman slot where you ideally love Peyton Bowen and take that position over.
Sure.
The playmaking we saw his freshman year starts happening, and he's the guy next to his.
Was such a bad deal for those guys that are.
Yeah, so last year was a loss for him. So
yeah.
But I do think the Dolby thing. I mean, was Woody Washington our primary Dolby replacement?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. I mean, so now you've got maybe, even if Dolby is struggling a little bit, you have Reggie Powers there. I think Reggie's got serious game at safety. I mean, his coverage stuff looked great out of high school. So
they're living in that cheetah right now too. If you don't get Dolby back,
Yeah. So he's physically got everything you'd want,
no doubt,
to play that position. So I do think. I just wonder. I think you just have to wonder if the right player at cornerback is available, right? And but the NIL ask is a little much, just like an NFL roster, right? What are you cutting and where are you cutting money from? I think we have too many tight ends, right? And a couple of guys probably need to move on from there. I don't know if that's a lot of NIL money, though, right? You guys are saying we may want another wide receiver. To me, I'd rather stand pat at wide receiver. I like what I see from all of the imports, and the two freshmen look fantastic.
Yeah, also the freshmen with Guillory
and Kearney and Zion Kearney's apparently having a good spring as well. Yeah, so that puts you up to 7, 8 guys. I'm just not sure where. Again, I'm just not sure we're going to find anybody better than Giovanni Gibson, for one, or better than Deion Burks has obviously been sitting out this spring. But if you watch his workouts this week, that's just basically OU just saying we're not going to we're not going to do it. Yeah. We're not focused. Don't worry about it. Just watch. Just he's obviously healthy and ready to play. I mean, let's just call it what it is. OU's just being cautious with him. So if you have that, I wouldn't go to wide receiver. I'm not sure you'd find an elite tight end that's a difference maker either. Now, can Todd Bates, with his reputation and what he's done with portal defensive tackles, can you get an upgraded D tackle? Maybe. That's the one place I think somebody might go in the portal and call Todd Bates and say, "Hey, you guys rotate defensive tackles, no problem. I want to be mentored and raise my game by you. I think that's a possibility. But the cornerback safety things, is Devon Jordan ready to go? The question is, do you trust your development at those two positions, or do you want to bring in somebody? I think cornerback, as Brady said, the problem is
unless it's somebody that you know is going to be an addition, though. Why would you bother with that? Because the guys that they've recruited, they like. And so, we saw Eli, become a freshman All-American last year. So you're hearing good things about Malik. You're hearing good things about some of these other guys. I feel like
Devon Jordan and Cortland Guillory. So
it's and if they can identify somebody that they believe is really going to help them, fine, go do that. But I don't think that you go out there and screw up somebody's.
No, I mean, if you can find that, like
I don't want them to go out there and mess with somebody's, development just because, and on just a whim that maybe he can help us.
Yeah, if like the UMass guy comes available, spend him like that guy who is just clearly really good, or
is that guy out there? I don't know.
Or the Tory, was it Amos, the Amos guy who went to Ole Miss from Bama that we almost got out of from like the Louisiana school before he went to Alabama. If that guy's in there, sure. But I think it's less who's available. It's more about who is going to be available than anything else from my viewpoint. But because I just don't think, the roster gaps are as wide as we think in most areas. At the offensive line, you're gonna get Howland and Ozetta back by summer. That increases your numbers there. Again, if the guy at Miami, Mariaga, wants to hit the portal and OU has the money for him, go grab that guy. But I mean, we're talking, the numbers of guys that really could help us at this point are just. It's a small group, and I'm just not sure what schools and where what players are going to come from. That's why you have got Nagy though. So there's always can be a guy from Fordham that he says no. This like I said, the guy that helped Michigan was from UMass, and UMass is a terrible football program. So there's always going to be guys out there, but I haven't seen any yet where I'm like, go get that guy.
Yeah, and I mean, I would also say this, man. If we really believe in what this defensive line is, maybe it's worth and trusting in what you have in the room and them doing well, because you're not going to have quarterbacks having as much time as they normally would.
One thing just to cap this, and I want to move on to just kind of like the whole Kool-Aid talk because I want to hear what you and Brady had to say. But one thing I would say is this right here, guys, we do have great developers on this team. And I think that's something that we gotta remember. So some of these kids that we've been really excited about kind of goes back to Chris Mason's talk when we used to do it would be just me and him. We would talk about beating Bo in the offensive line. Mason would always say, "Hey man, I get that you want to go and get the as Brady would say, the G5 All-Americans and all of them. You gotta develop what you got on campus now and give these guys a shot so we can figure it out." We're just not at that point. So I think that obviously there's some additions that I would like to see you make just for numbers and just for support. But I think that you got some guys on campus, but, things just have to fall in line. You're hoping that obviously you want Gentry to be healthy, but the story is different whenever you talk about Jacoby Johnson. You want to see him be able to take maybe a spot, maybe be able to solidify himself in that rotation and be, really dependent. I think that's kind of where we're at. But with that, let's move on. And this Kool-Aid talk, like I said, we got the ultimate pessimist himself, Brady Trantham, on here, and then we have a pretty optimistic crew with everybody else that's just like I'm hesitant, but I'm sipping it. So Brady, let's start with you. Let's
real quick. If we won 11, 12 games last year, I wouldn't be pessimistic. There'd be no reason to be. Like, it'd be like, what can we clean up on the margins in order to win 12, 13, or all of our games? That's what I think.
So you're saying you're not Debbie Downer. You're pessimistic with a reason.
Basically,
with cause. You've got cause.
I'm reacting to the team I last saw, which was a team that allowed a 98-yard touchdown run to Navy. So, yeah. I'm not super confident, but it's OU. They might change my mind.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess the question would be for anybody who is pessimistic, and I think it's fair to say, hey, we're going to wait. We're just going to wait and see what happens here because of the fact that I was saying this on the show the other day. It's fair to say it, but the truth is, if you go back and look at a lot of these games, why did you lose? It wasn't it was because you didn't have an offensive game plan. You had a lot of guys out. You had an offensive line that was never the same throughout the year. I mean, in what was it, 13 games, you probably had 11 different lineups. It's insanity. And then you had probably the worst offensive coordinator in the history of Oklahoma football. Just trash. It was, and no development of your quarterbacks, plus a quarterback that was pissing down his leg too. I mean, there's on top, and still somehow you find a way to go 6-6. I would say that you probably still could have won 8 games if you hadn't pissed away that one at Missouri or, had some different things. Now, that being said, you still got to go out there and prove that you can do that on offense. Do I think that they take the next step on the defensive side? I think that they should. There's no reason why they shouldn't. And I think that getting a quarterback that had 44 touchdowns in any league, whatever that is, and isn't afraid of this defense whenever he comes in and plays against it, especially knowing you're not going to get hit. I mean, shit, but he's out there and knows this offense, and you should have some semblance of an offense. I don't think you have to be top 10. I think they could be, but I don't think you have to be. I think you need to be in the top 30 or so. And all of a sudden, now you are playing for 8, 9, 10 wins.
I mean, when it comes down to close games, and not that, I mean, necessarily OU was in, they weren't necessarily in a lot of close games. There were games where the situation, there were situations where it was close. Like Ole Miss is a good example. It was close for the majority of that game until it got away from OU very quickly. When it comes down to close games, I mean, that's coaching. Now, there are very rare exceptions to that rule. Brent Venables made a lot of mistakes in the Missouri game. Sure, OU outplayed Missouri. What lost them the game was Jackson Arnold just fumbling the football every 4 or 5 times he touched it. So sometimes that happens. It's a team sport. It's the greatest team sport out there, football. But sometimes, very rarely, one guy can lose you a game, and it happened in Columbia last year. And so, it's just the shit end of the luck stick that OU got. Sure. But there are reasons to be optimistic. Even for me, there are reasons to be optimistic, but at the same time, a lot of that optimism is just always curbed by the fact that I think at the very least, the jury is still out on Brent Venables as a head coach. I think that there are reasons to be optimistic that have a lot to do with, surprisingly, the schedule. I've talked about it a lot on Through the Keyhole. I like the spot of Michigan and the second game of the season that early with
put that kid in the blender.
Underwood more than likely being their starter, or the transfer kid from Fresno State, whomever it is. It's big early season test for them. You like the home team in this situation. Michigan was bad last year, like OU, but they ended their season on a much better note than we did. But you like the home team. Early September, Norman, Oklahoma's going to be hot. So, all right, Michigan, come on down to the South and see what it's like. But you like that spot. I mean, even going on the road against Temple, if you get a big win against Michigan and you feel good about yourself, you can easily lay an egg in the first quarter against one of the worst teams in college football in Temple, with it being on the road, which would then give Brent Venables and the staff a good opportunity to reignite the team and then go out there, kick Temple's ass, and then prepare yourself for Jackson Arnold. In terms of optics, that is a game Brent Venables cannot lose. He cannot lose to Jackson Arnold, especially in a year after where Josh Heupel came back to OU and took selfies on the field. Shane Beamer came back to OU and took selfies on the field after winning. Theo Weiss had the game of his fucking life against OU.
My God, yes.
No more of this. You are somewhat or connected to OU. Go out there and beat them, and it's the crowning achievement of your life. So go beat Jackson Arnold, then go into the bye week and the second bye week of Kent State and prepare for Texas. So the schedule sets up for OU to leave the Cotton Bowl with, maybe a loss. And even with Texas, They have to go to Florida the week before, and Florida is on somewhat of an upswing, and they have already gone to Ohio State. So we'll know well by then if Arch Manning is as good as everyone claims that he is. And if he isn't, then OU can go into the bye week and then the Kent State game with like, no, we expect to go into the Cotton Bowl and kick their ass. Now, again, that's a lot of ifs. And all this kind of falls under Brent Venables to be the head coach, but he's going to be the defensive coordinator. So I hope Ben Arbuckle is mature enough to understand that you don't have to pass the ball 65 times. Run the football. Lincoln Riley had to be told by Bob Stoops, you've got Samaje Perine and Joe Mixon over there. Why are you're not in Lubbock anymore? Stop throwing the football.
Well, yeah, we keep hearing though that was one of the things that he liked about Arbuckle. So
yeah.
Hopefully, I mean, I haven't seen him be in jumbo packages at times in his time at Washington State and at Western Kentucky. I think that they should be running the ball.
And we're suspicious that Kevin Wilson is gonna help in that regard.
Oh boy. If it's 4th and short and we run it up the middle and don't get it, who's going to get blamed? Kevin Wilson? It's like, what is this, 2010?
Guys, I got a question for you all. I'm going to put it here and put it up right there. How many points does OU need to average to be successful next year?
What did we average last year? Like 24 points per game?
What did we average minus Maine?
I want to say it was.
Let's be real. That's what our real game.
How many times?
I mean, you take 70 points against Maine. What was our average? And take that 70 out. I mean, that's the real average for us. So yeah, I think in SEC play, we need to average 30 points a game.
Mm-hmm.
Did we average more points or more first downs per game? Is the big question.
35. We averaged 35 points a game last year.
No. He's saying that's what we need to average.
If we're averaging 35 points a game.
I'll tell you what it is. I'll tell you where we ranked on the offensive side because I've got the graphics somewhere here.
I'd say 30 points a game. I got to admit, hearing that Giovanni Gibson has clicked, hearing that Isaiah Satandaga has clicked, watching Marvin Jones Jr. and hearing that move has worked, that Kenyon Daniels' move has worked. Oh. I'm being a recruiting guy. I'm optimistic by nature, so I'm buying a little of the Kool-Aid. Hearing everything about Mateer. That's everything we're hearing from Mateer. That's nationally being said about Mateer. I'm buying that Kool-Aid right now. Because I think there's enough offensive line pieces. And the offensive line talent has gone up significantly, and the depth has gone up significantly. That the offensive line issues we saw last year, I think, are somewhat behind us. We have three lineups we're able to run this spring without Howland and Ozetta. I think there's enough talent, and I think Kevin Wilson is going to help Bill with the O-line as well. So I'm buying the Kool-Aid that the offense can be competitive next year, and that our front six can be borderline best in the SEC. I just need to know who our cornerback is and who our other safety is.
I think a big key is, I think we all technically, and I'm not going to assume you guys agree with me, but I feel like as a fan base, we need to all understand that the jury is still out on Deion Burks, whether or not he's good. I think he's incredibly talented. I think the only things we can say about him is he's injury prone. And I mean, God, he lost 20 pounds. I don't know if that's good or bad. We can say he's injury prone and he's not as lightning quick as he was advertised, because if Seth Luttrell did one thing last year, it was force feed Deion Burks the football underneath, even though in the spring game, we saw him as a deep threat and he looked awesome. But all of a sudden we just started throwing him like jailbreak screens, and it's like, okay, he's the fast guy, and he never was able to break away and showcase any of that speed. So again, the offense last year, gigantic mulligan in terms of like, there was no leadership, there was no identity, like everything was crap. But I want to believe Deion Burks can be good, but we've not seen anything of him in his time at OU to suggest that he will be, because I also hope, like you say, Gibson is as good as we're hearing in spring ball. We were hearing the same things about Deion Burks last year. So it's just a whole
Well,
bunch of
we saw it. We saw it in the spring game. I mean, we got fed that Kool-Aid mirage in the spring game, right? Okay. Deion Burks went for 200 yards.
He had 3 touchdowns in the first game of the year too.
Yeah. So, but I agree with you. I think that's a measurement there.
The verdict is still out, but I would say, hey, new year, new OC. Let's give it a chance, because I think the scheme is going to fit a guy like that. Because I'll be honest with you, there were plenty of times when he was on the field, he was getting open. He's a good route runner.
That's the biggest thing with Arbuckle, with like an actual offensive coordinator with a brain. I think the biggest thing that you can assume will happen is that there will be plays run to get guys open and then get them the football immediately. Because I'm still shocked that OU was apparently the only team in college football last year that could not call a play to get Zion Kearney the ball or to get Reagans the ball instead of just handing him the football, because he's supposed to be the track speed guy and he's really fast, but he's not fast enough to just hand him the ball on a reverse because he was never able to break away. But you're telling me you can't run some bubble screen for him? Like, why is that so difficult, Joe John Finley? But I mean, look, that's why I'm a fan. I'm not a coach.
No, I mean, you took a look at
it's a fair question.
You take a look at every breakdown of Arbuckle from everybody who seems to profess some football knowledge, and they all talk about his ability to scheme guys open, right? Mm-hmm. That's a universal kind of comment from, if you could take like bullet points from everybody across the internet.
Those dudes are open all the time. I've seen every game he coached at Washington State. I've seen a lot of the games you could find from Western Kentucky. Those dudes get open.
I mean, it's so yeah. I think you're right. We're waiting to see the highlights from Purdue, Deion Burks, right, where he was just blowing through people, past people, and just looked great for a shitty Purdue team. So yeah, I think that's true. That's true. But I'm buying again. We're not getting much details, right? We have limited people getting access to practice. The Crimson Combine is going to be meaningless, right?
So stupid.
Even less than what a spring game gave us. But
I hate it. I hate it.
But when I see Mateer working out with Gibson and Burks and he's flinging the ball around and they're flying around in a workout, I buy that Kool-Aid. That Kool-Aid sings to me.
I know it's
6'4" Chevy stink there, Kchris. I think that this is fair. A fair thing to say is because since when has it ever been that way at Oklahoma? I mean, we got to go back to the 90s for them to be anywhere close to as bad as they were. And it was everything you've heard is that there were coaches around the SEC that were like, we know exactly what they're running.
Well, I think the problem with that thought is if OU's in the Big 12 and they just randomly had an awful year on offense like they did in 2014, they were able to turn it around with a brand new quarterback and a brand new offensive coordinator that ultimately, yes, they became Baker Mayfield, Lincoln Riley. So we got lucky on that end. But you're doing it in a conference where even when OU was losing all those games in 2014, for the most part, they had more talent than their opponents, even the ones that were beating them in 2014.
That's fair.
So OU can make vast improvements on offense from where they were last year. And I think we all expect them to. And Ben Arbuckle should be able to do that. John Mateer should be able to do that. But what does that ultimately result in because of that gigantic SEC elephant in the room? Like OU's just got a tough schedule. So they might make vast improvements and they might win 7 or 8 games because of maybe a key injury or maybe because the ball doesn't bounce our way in a particular game. It's just the fact of the matter. I think John Mateer is going to be good and Ben Arbuckle are going to be good. But my question is like, are they 8-4 good? In which case I'll, bite my tongue and say, I guess Brent can have the job for another year or so. I think he earned it with 8 wins, but this is the University of Oklahoma. We're not 8-4 and then hang a banner.
Do you really think that they're going to fire him and pay him $35 million if it isn't as so bad as like 5 or 4 wins instead? Because I don't.
You mean because to me, if they
win, they fire him. I don't think they fired him at 6-6. Not that I think 6-6 is happening, but
I think they absolutely should.
I don't think that they will. Is the question is, do you believe that they will? That
Yes.
you're going to pay $100 million to that staff to get rid of them and lose all the money that they've already invested in all these players?
Yeah, because you're just dead. You are going to be wandering in the desert if you just become 6-7, 7-5 Oklahoma. That's not good enough.
No, it's not good
And
enough. I'm just
money-
saying, I don't know that with the money the way it is right now and all the way, having to save, I just don't see Oklahoma paying him that much to not coach if they're 6-6, 7-5.
Well, it's also the staff, and then hiring the new staff. I mean, it's
That's
it's $100 million transition. So
correct.
But
And
yeah,
that's-
if you
that
go,
could put you- that could put you back another 3 years.
it's because obviously, the new coach won't get to coach a lot of this talent. It'll hit the portal and it'll be a portal raid of our defense, right? And let's presume how do you get to 6-6? Offense doesn't improve, and the secondary's leaky, right? And you have some injuries in our front six, right? That's basically that's the template of how it happens, right?
I think it would
O-line isn't better. Wide receivers can't get open, and Mateer struggles to re-engage. We don't have a running game, and Mateer can't re-engage the passing game because of those two things. And then on defense, our secondary is leaky because of what we've talked about, and you lose some games from key contributors up front, right?
I have a hard time believing that that's going to happen, but
that's the template of what goes on, right? Sure. I mean, and this the big thing is, to me, is to Brady's point is.
What's going on here?
No. All right, there we go. I think Brady's right. The problem is the schedule, right? It's Missouri worse? Can you legitimately go to Rocky Top and pull up a win? South Carolina kicked the crap out of us last year, but we donated 28 points, just in gift wrap bundles. Can you go to Columbia? That's a tough place to play. What is Texas going to be with 2 years of serious development, serious personnel losses with a new quarterback? So I don't know what our schedule. I don't know Michigan. I don't know what. I personally would buy out the Michigan game. Because it's already difficult enough. But I do think a Michigan game can aid you in a way. But you lose that game and it all starts rolling downhill. Possibly.
I think OU is at a point where they need to have tests, for external eyes, like our eyes, but for them as well. They have to remember that they're players at the University of Oklahoma and that they came here to win games like this and to not shy away from it. This is a team of players that don't know how to win football games. And even some of the players that are still here from the 23 team that went 10-3, they win the Texas game. That was a close, hard-fought victory that they earned. But then they were in 2 other close games against top 25 teams on the road, and they lost at the end, mainly because they couldn't make enough plays to win the game at the end. Like whether it was stopping an opponent or getting a first down or scoring, getting in field goal range to ice the game.
Right.
This is a program of players that need to learn how to win games. Hopefully John Mateer's that guy that can put the team on his back, even though he's not coming from a program that won a lot of games. But he seems to have the moxie and the charisma, the personality to suggest that I'm at OU. This is what we do is win games. So follow me.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right from that standpoint. It's the Michigan game. I mean, they just don't need it from a strength of schedule basis.
Oh no. Yeah.
For life, but it's like, do we really need this? I mean, we could ditch this game and it's not like it would hurt us.
Are we going to do the Matt Rule thing now?
Well, Again, the SEC's done. I'd be fine with the Michigan game and keeping the Michigan game if the SEC hadn't just power screwed us with the schedule we have. I mean, I was drinking the Kool-Aid, and then I heard Conley on with Eichert and Lehman, where he said, a top 5 team could easily go 9-3 with OU's schedule. Top 3 talented team in the country by all of its advanced metrics. They say. That it could easily go 9-3. It's like,
but I think that you can see that happening anyway because of the fact that you're going up against a bunch of new quarterbacks in a lot of these games, right?
I think there's a lot of unknowns that are our opponents. I think
the
that's
defense
true.
needs to do what it. I think that if your defense plays anywhere close to what it did last year, and even better, which I feel like you can, the offense again doesn't have to be top 10. It just has to be serviceable, and you're not going to have people scoring a ton of points on you. You're just not. If you have, that D line is cooking the way it looks like it should be, I don't understand why you wouldn't be better than that.
Here's the
and again, if they can't be better than that because of the fact that, and I mean, I don't know if it's an injury thing or whatever the template is, whatever you want to call it. If they're not figuring it out and they're not winning close games and stuff like that because they're stupid stuff or bad management of the game, play calling versus or time management, whatever you want to call it, timeout management. Okay, fine. Then he's not progressing as a head coach the way you want him to. And I think that we've talked about that a lot, is that the learning curve on BV that's the question for me. And it's been okay, does he learn to manage the clock better? I think that's probably got something to do with why you have Kevin Wilson back, that he's been in that position. It feels like it's another situation where you had Matt Wells a couple of years ago, right? Same deal.
And stop celebrating like a coordinator when you suddenly do something good. You're the head coach. Like delay a game penalties.
I'm glad we got both sides of it in here today.
Stop, Brady. Stop.
It helped cost OU a game.
Cut the foolishness.
Holy crap, we did something good. Oh, did you guys see that? Oh, snap. We don't have a plan. Timeout. Oh, delay a game. Damn it. We're out of, whatever. That was on him.
That's a cold but yet accurate comment.
I'm critical of Bob Stoops. Bob Stoops would have never done that. He would have never allowed that to happen. Absolutely not.
Come on, man. So guys, we've been on here for an hour and 27 minutes. I think we've worn out our welcome, but I will say this. Look, I think that we're in a good spot. Why? Because the majority is counting us out. You love to see a pissed off OU team coming into the season. I hate whenever we come in there and everybody patting us on the back. We usually do well whenever we're pretty pissed off. Got something to prove, a lot to lose, but I got something to prove, and that's all that you're looking for.
Fair enough.
Definitely interested to see what's going to go down in April. I think the Crimson Combine, whatever you want to call it, that's going to be great for whatever it's worth. But I will say this, that after that is what I'm really interested in. So news is going to be slow. Kind of like Chris Mason said, there's only a handful of people that really have like a lot of access to what's going on out there. But from everything you're hearing, things that you're seeing, have to be really optimistic. I'm sorry. I know that was on just that little video that OU dropped or whatever on their Instagram account, Twitter account and stuff. But when I saw Marvin Jones Jr. do that spin move, my God, okay, my God, it was amazing. I said, Jesus. We will. I think we could have a legit pass rush, and that's something that we probably will talk about next time.
Oh, here we go with that one. More strays headed in the direction of Ethan Downs.
I'm not putting any strays. I'm just saying we'll get like a real pass rush. I think you can play with a lead and all the rest of that stuff. We could talk about that, but I think we may be making a little bit too many excuses on that end. Look at Georgia. Look at Bama. Look how many games they're playing where every possession matters. They're still getting sacks throughout the game. It's not just, let's line up in the fourth quarter or late in the third towards the fourth quarter and start really getting that pass rush going. They're coming whether they're up, whether they're down, whatever the case may be. They're still bringing it. Not saying that.
Be kind of cool if you had 3 first half sacks or first quarter sacks.
I mean, just to kind of show, like, you have guys that are very disruptive. A guy like Jaden Jackson. Jaden Jackson pops open an awful lot. He sheds his guy. His first step. He and David Stone have amazing first steps on off the snap. But it's all about once you pop open, can you finish, right? Can you get home? Look at a guy like Reggie Grimes a few years ago. That was always his problem. the guy was always basically getting in the backfield, just always get pushed out. He was climbing way too much. And at the end of the day, he just couldn't get to the quarterback. That was the biggest issue. Nothing else, just couldn't get to the quarterback. So when you can't get home, but that's something that we'll probably talk about next time. Everybody, go ahead, tell everybody where they can find all of the content that we have, right? Jason, we'll start with you.
Hall of Fame College Football is at HOF-CFB right here on YouTube. Make sure you guys are sharing all these guys and jump over and hit the like button on both channels that are streaming. And I think it's just us two. And of course, you can find me on Twitter sometimes. It's at JW_HOF. Hey, man, good having you on here tonight, Brady.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you guys for letting me jump on and scream. I appreciate it. I guess my turn. Yeah, Through the Keyhole. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, we're all ugly, so we don't put ourselves on camera. That'd be myself, Peyton Guthrie, Alan Kinney, and Matt Burton. We put out podcasts on Tuesdays. We also have extra stuff on our Patreon page, patreon.com/Through the Keyhole. So if you are so inclined to help support, we would appreciate it. And you get extra stuff to read. So half the time it's me being myself on the podcast or writing it down. So we have a fun time at Through the Keyhole.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, CM_Sooners360. I post quite a bit on Twitter, but you also can find the Sooners 360 Recruiting Podcast on your channel of choice or on YouTube. Subscribe to the Sooners 360 channel. I also have a Patreon account, so just go to patreon.com and search for Sooners 360.
All right, folks, look, it's been another episode of this. You heard all the podcast channels and all the rest of that stuff. Go follow, subscribe, share, do all those different things. All this content right here that you're getting is good content. People that I definitely trust, people that I'm actual friends with, right? I'm friends with everybody. But anyway, people, we out of here. Kchris